Warren, I'll take attendance.
Okay,
I see Giebert, Shaw, Bachhuber, Crow, Wilkinson, Potter. And West, are you on this committee now? I'm confused.
Yeah, I got put
I'll
on
take
water
your word for it.
resources and,
she was on water resources and took those.
And West.
And then appointed.
and was appointed to
Yeah,
structure
Gotcha,
utility.
gotcha. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well.
Who's on first base?
Yeah, that's right.
Too many changes. So we have a quorum.
Good. Okay, the first item of business is a motion for approval of minutes from August 16th.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of approval?
I,
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Minutes are you're almost too late. for
You're
you.
not in this meeting. Jeffrey, we've moved to the next meeting.
Okay,
And you're muted.
okay. Next item, my first item of business is the Madison Development. So do you want to introduce
Yes.
that here? What we're
I
talking about?
will. Carl Jensen is here with Veerbecker too, and I think we've got Lori Heineman from the developer themselves and also Harry Irwin online, it looks like. So this project is located just west of the grocery store on Century, right in this parcel here. It's been under design review for a while. They had all their stormwater approvals, but then ran into trouble with DSPS plumbing review and infiltration. And it's gone through a couple of times now. And they're awaiting a third approval from DSPS, which we anticipate is gonna completely disallow infiltration from the site.
Why?
why?
There's a perched groundwater table, and beneath it, there's soil borings found some good sand. But DSPS is still saying we won't allow infiltration here, so.
There's perched water tables all over the city.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and the Middleton Hills is perched. I mean, the wetland right behind this site, right? Wasn't that our
I
assessment
mean,
years
what
ago?
what is their definition of a perched water table?
The DSPS code is written so that if they find, modeling, soil modeling or evidence of seasonal high groundwater, that trips this rejection. And I think it's difficult to convince them otherwise. So this has happened in several spots.
All these years, I never remember them being involved. Were they behind,
Oh, they have been.
where they've been behind the scenes and not just said anything? You've always submitted to them automatically,
For a non-residential project, yes.
so it's always been that way.
Well, does it also factor of how the water gets to the infiltration site? A pipe versus swale?
Well, perhaps.
Right. Okay, fair enough.
Because I've seen them reviewed where if all DSPS wants is for you to eliminate like a drain tile. And then they'll say, well, now we don't need to.
Now it's
review
not in our purview.
it. That's not what happened on the site.
All right.
A little workaround.
So they reject it because if we have more infiltration, then the water will hit this perch thing and go into the apartment basement. Gonna cause,
It won't infiltrate.
it'll increase the groundwater levels in the area and cause some problems within the.
Right. Same as if it wasn't a perched groundwater table. They're kind of looking at it the same way that these soils are not suitable.
Don't most homes now and businesses actually account for that by digging around the foundation and putting gravel in there and connect it to a sump?
Footing tile in or something.
Yeah, and connect it to a sump pump. I think it's almost
Sure.
automatic now.
But this could impact the neighbors, let's say.
And it's, if you're gonna drain it anyway, then it's not infiltrating anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
Just Pumping it up the storm sewers.
So take it overland to the neighbors.
Well,
Okay.
so you're asking for a fee in lieu of, because of this, anticipating that the DSPS won't approve the third time.
Yeah, that's the direction they've got. Yeah, that's the way this will go. I'm almost certain.
What happens if we didn't have a fee in lieu provision in our ordinance?
Well, then they'd be exempt.
Yeah. They'd be exempt then.
Yeah, with, that's what the fee in lieu does, is just allows us to collect some money to spend elsewhere on infiltration. Otherwise, through DNR rules or DSPS rules, this would end up exempt
Maximum extent, right?
due to poor soils.
So can I make a motion to approve the fee in lieu of request?
Second.
We have a motion for approval.
Contingent upon Dane County review of DSPS approval.
We have a motion for approval and a second, so all in favor? So it's approved.
All right.
You're good?
You gotta hold, leave
Yeah.
you guys alone,
Now
it's been
you gonna-
fun.
now you gonna feel.
Thanks for letting me join in, both meetings.
Okay, the refund, as we mentioned before, that's not very much money, but
I know.
Yes.
That's,
That's,
yeah, we gotta change that formula.
gotta fix that.
that's
Or
the
review
story.
it.
Better than nothing.
Let me do some housekeeping. Alder Jackson, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
The Stormwater Utility Board meeting has ended and you're now in Water Resources meeting.
Okay, let me, I'm sorry. You guys have
No,
a great
that's
day.
And I think maybe you got a finance committee meeting right now?
Yeah, I'm on it. I'm watching both of y'all. I'm juggling everything and I'm at work.
Get up, drop this one.
Juggling too much. All right, thank you.
He's at work in
All
San
right.
Francisco.
I don't think they're- Bye-bye.
Triple dipping.
Okay,
Okay,
next item of business is a future foam redevelopment.
yeah, and we have Christy Treacle. And Christy, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that correctly.
It's treacle, but you're close.
Okay, from KL, who's a consultant working for Future Foam. Let me try to find an overview for you to look at. The site is off of Parview Road in the industrial. I think it was an old lumber yard and there are 3 buildings that are gonna be demolished, 3, big sheds and a smaller building out front. So it's complete redevelopment.
Can you just point that on the map where industrial park it is?
It's the old hall lumber.
I can't remember that.
Big,
That doesn't mean.
big open sided sheds.
That's criteria.
Future Foam has 2 other facilities out in that area and it's north of both of those, if you know where they're currently located.
2314.
There. Let me turn on
Okay.
the aerial for you. So this is the site up on the screen now, as it looks current.
They're all going away and just whole site's being
Yep. And so there were, I don't know if you guys remember, last year, we looked at a much smaller redevelopment of this site where they were gonna redo loading docks in this area. And they had proposed a small basin up in this corner. Poor soils, and we had approved fees in lieu for that proposal. This different scale of proposal here. We had a initial meeting with the consultant and we did ask them to try to add some infiltration at the rear of the site where it looked like there were better soils,
Better being heavier, sandy.
sandy.
Sandy,
that's what-
I wouldn't say sandy, but better.
Indeed.
That's what they've come back with. They are getting infiltration out of these two basins back here. Basin out front would be a dry basin. And I'll stop talking. Christy, if you have anything to add.
The
Feel-
basin out front, we've got shallow groundwater there, poor soils, kind of the whole gamut on that side of the site. So, I mean, we tried to do what we could on the west side of the site to make stuff work. We're doing strictly infiltration basins there, taking the roof water and sending it in there to avoid the need for pretreatment on that side. And then we're using a flow filter system to get our sediment removal. And then that front pond is mainly providing our rate control. Yeah, and actually I think we're shifting away from a big vault system to a couple smaller manhole, but same system, but it'll be spread out around the site a little bit more than just kind of right at the end. So. But yeah, I mean, that's basically our overall site. There's just not a lot. They tried to cram a lot on this site, as you can see, so we didn't have a lot of space to work with, but we eked out as much stormwater as we could on the west side there, where soils were a little better, and tried to maximize our infiltration over there. And then unfortunately, like the whole front of the building, or the east half of the building, and the whole truck parking loading area, all is flowing to the east. So that's probably our biggest area of impervious, and we couldn't really capture that for infiltration just because of the topography.
I think I see two soil boring locations. Are there more than two on that site?
We did test pits in all three areas. We did borings kind of all over the place too, but we did do test pits in each of the stormwater areas also.
Meaning the east side and the two on the west side?
Yes.
Okay.
And that information should all be, the test pits on the west side were an addendum to our original, the original geotech report. That should all be attached, but it maybe isn't on the one map you're looking at. We did those after the fact.
It's not attached, but they've submitted it.
You've
We
seen
have
it.
Yeah.
Is the overall imperviousness of this parcel going up or down or same?
It's going up.
Going up. There's currently some grass on the southern end of the site, and that's,
Yeah, that's going away.
yeah.
Here, I'll go back to this.
Yeah, so
So
there is
this-
some grass there on the south that is going away. The rest is all pretty impervious. I mean, it's gravel, but gravel essentially acts as impervious, but that grassy area on the south is going away. So we are increasing the impervious.
Sediment numbers that can meet those with the upflow filters?
Yeah, I think we needed like 50%, and that's about what we're getting.
Do you want me to go back to the plan view?
But it's gravelly, but what's the interstitial material?
Now, or, as it sits today,
Pardon?
as its lot sits today? Or,
I mean, you got gravel, but what's between the gravel?
well, I got a feeling it's a truck yard.
She was talking about gravel pavement.
Oh,
To
gravel pavement.
subsoils.
Yeah.
I think they were getting out of one of those test pits, Christy, I think you had sand, 3.6 inches per hour.
In the
I don't-
northwest one, we were, but then we did have like a 0.5 underneath that.
Okay,
So I think we did actually, we're calling for over excavation in both of those areas. Like there is some sand there, but we are calling for over excavation in both of those areas to pull out. There was kind of more limiting lenses in them. That we're calling those to be pulled out and a better infiltrating material to be put back in. I think some of the existing material is going to be able to be put back in, but some of it won't be. We kind of stated that you need a geotech on site when you're digging these things out and telling you what you can keep and not keep and put back other stuff that's going to drain better. So. But
This
down
one that-
deep, we had sand. So, I mean, there was a couple kind of limiting layers up near the top that we're digging out, but down deeper, we had sand in the northwest one, and I think we had kind of a silty sand in the southwest one.
is it going to Elliott at the county?
Haven't gone to the, this.
Yes, and Elliott was present at the, initial design meeting that we had a couple months ago too.
So infiltration requirement was 56% and they're doing 40% or 41.
Yeah.
So they're asking for fees in lieu of for the difference.
Yes,
And there is pre-treatment.
56%, Warren, is the amount, the requirement that they're making. Not actual infiltration.
We are not pre-treating because we're only sending roof water there.
Right.
They're hitting 56% of the minimum requirement. At this, with this current,
I think that's the way this worked out, yes.
Because it's a redevelopment.
Right. Let me take you to the little proration.
Yeah, I got it.
Oh, you've got it printed.
But sure.
Where is it? All right, for recharge. So that's your answer, Jim. There's 150,000 square feet of impervious now, and they're gonna add about 50,000 square feet.
So we're infiltrating 40%. The requirement was 56%.
Yeah, so they're 16% shy.
And you're still doing pre-treatment,
well, no,
Not for the
Yeah.
infiltration.
not infiltration.
But they're getting the TSS, they're meeting their TSS requirement, if that's what you're.
Yeah,
how many, just curious, how many upflow filters you gonna put in here?
We're doing 4 manhole filters and they're gonna have 4 cartridges each.
And those get replaced twice a year?
Yearly. We got it, we modeled it to replace them once a year.
Oh, all right, well, I'll make a motion to approve the requested fee in lieu of. Contingent upon concurrence from Dane County reviewer, DSPS approval.
Second.
we have a motion for approval. Is there any more discussion? If not, all in favor?
All right,
Opposed? Motion's carried.
Thank you,
I
everyone.
think this is one of the better executive summaries I've seen. It's easy to follow. Of all the ones that we've seen, this is a good format.
Yep.
It makes it easy to follow through.
Send it out to the other consultants.
Could we make a standard so we look at the same presentation? It'd be easier for you guys if.
Well, it sure would. Someday when I have time, you'll make some. Recommended outline.
This is a good.
Christie already did it for you. Thanks, Christie.
No, definitely.
Okay, thank you, Christy.
Yep, thank you, guys.
Also, one other thing here, Mark Opitz, are you
Yeah.
available to talk? And for how long? Bill, he's not paying attention.
You're on mute. Yes.
Oh, now he's gone. Okay, never mind. Mark was trying to be here for item number 5, the zoning discussion. Well, wait, now he's back.
There he is.
Sorry about
You
that.
drive?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah, sorry about that. I was changing a settings so that my camera would work on my new phone and then that logged me out. So sorry about that.
so how long are you available for, Mark?
Until 6:45, ideally.
So my request was gonna be if we could switch the order of
Yeah.
numbers 4 and 5, so that Mark.
I would
be
appreciate
present
that. Thank you. Thank you.
To help out with this
Okay.
discussion.
And the next item is a zoning code rewrite project. And I'm not sure where we stand at right now.
Well, let me give a little introduction like I have to all the committees. First of all, thank you for your time and for reviewing this. I know you took a look at it a year ago as well. I put together a memo a month ago to all the committees to which this was referred. We've been working with Vanderwall for a couple of years to develop this overhaul to the zoning code. And what I did in my memo for each committee is identified the areas that I thought would be of most pertinent interest to your committee, given your purview. And then Eric took that table that I put together and added some commentary, which I very much appreciate. So that's my introduction. And I would simply add that we are planning to take all committee feedback to the Plan Commission next Tuesday for further guidance on how to enhance the ordinance. We're going to have a series of open houses, 5 of them, starting in late September into mid-October. And we'd like to get the ordinance wrapped up ideally in November. Well, by the end of the year, basically, is our goal with the hearing in November. So I'm here to listen.
Okay, so I had sent you all Mark's memo several weeks ago. And I asked, this was a big lift and gave you some extra time to look at it. And then I was unable to get my own comments out to you until regular packet time. But these are my comments written in red on top of Mark's original memo. You guys looked at the overlay district part of this about a year ago and made recommendations, so I am kind of referring back to that in some of these. They made the adjustments to the environmental corridors that Water Resources had asked for. If you recall, the shoreland zoning overlay was the tricky one. And that chapter or section of the code, I don't think it's really ready for any comment from you. I think we had a miscommunication with the planning consultant and we didn't get a lot of these things taken care of. And I'm expecting that you're not going to want that to go through without a review of it. Which unfortunately is delaying Mark's timeline.
Why is shoreline lumped together with wellhead protection?
Just because it's an overlay district. It could lay over the top of, various residential, commercial, whatever. The wellhead is based on a radius around a well. Shoreland is based on a setback from the ordinary high water mark. Environmental corridors, same thing.
Since we're getting salt, we've noticed salt in our aquifer, our drinking water. And one possible source would be wellhead protection. So what is the wellhead protection? Quick summary.
I think it mainly prohibits like fuel storage tanks and things like that.
And what size of an area?
Boy, Mark,
It's
do
on-
you know that?
Yeah, it's on page 84 of the ordinance. So it applies to, I thought it was half a mile, but I'm looking it up. It's been a long time since I've looked at this. So it's on page 85. If you can go to the ordinance, Eric, I would appreciate that. Separation distances maintained for all municipal wells, 50 feet between a municipal well and a storm sewer main, 200 feet between a municipal well and a sanitary sewer main, 400 feet between a well and a septic tank or a stormwater pond, 600 feet between a well and any gasoline or fuel storage. I'm sorry, I don't know why I was thinking half a mile. It's the 600 feet I was thinking of. I was thinking 6 as a half for some reason. That's weird. 1,000 feet between a municipal well and industrial, commercial, or municipal waste, etc. So there's various separation distances. None of them are half a mile, so I misspoke on that one.
Are all these separation distances basically DNR?
I think so.
Code? Yeah.
So,
Well, what bothers me is we get our water from the St. Peter sandstone. And there's a Makokota shale that's above the St. Peter sandstone. So we should be concerned about the recharge area to that aquifer, not the radius around it.
Yeah.
We should, that's where we're getting the pollution. Because we're getting salt in there and we don't know where it's coming from, but the recharge area is what's important for wellhead protection. I know some of the Makokota shale thins out, and so some of the wells from Century Avenue going north, Makokota shale is probably gone, so then there is a direct connection to the St. Peter sandstone.
Which has a direct connection to the surface then, more or less?
Right, more or less. So I don't know how we address that in our ordinance, but it seems like we should identify the recharge areas and then have wellhead protection in those areas.
My understanding from our consultants' work is that
And, the Dane County groundwater probably has, I would guess, the recharge areas identified, Ken.
Think so, huh?
Yeah, I'm sure they do. They would have to in order to get the model to work.
Yeah.
And I guess I have no idea where the recharge area is for
Well,
St. Peter
again-
sandstone. It's probably outside of Middleton.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we
Could
know
well
the
be.
Springs recharge area goes up to Springfield Corners, right?
That's right.
It's way outside the city limits.
Yeah. But I guess we should take a look at it and see if there is a recharge area. I don't know.
it's not clearly mapped by USGS anywhere.
Dane County, WGS is the one that did the Dane County groundwater model with help of USGS. And we'd have to look at the model, it's online, and see if they identified recharge areas.
How many pumps does the city operate?
6, 7.
Since we identified salt, when they pump, the water get mixed between all 7 wells. So even though,
Well, not
Not-
necessarily between the
not
wells,
completely.
they would be mixed in the system.
in the system.
Right.
So we don't know, even though area right here is protected from the Makokota shale, with water from the area by Century Avenue West could be polluted and showing up in some other well.
Well, I think they're
Example.
sampling at the discharge point from the wells.
So they're measuring discharge, so.
Yeah,
The ones that had salt in it, I think, were the ones more in the downtown area, right?
there were 2 of them up on the hill behind Terrace Avenue, and I think those were the 2, that were looking high.
Yeah.
Well, as far as this zoning code goes, it's just mimicking the DNR requirements. And if we're gonna recommend expanding that wouldn't, that's a separate step, right? I mean, the code's gonna be, or ordinance is gonna be. To do the study would take, gonna take a months.
Yeah, I guess we just go with the stand, I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah, you could commission a study and recommend a special protection district.
right, still
Covers
revised
that.
down the road sometime.
Yeah. this, I think this is unchanged from the way we had it in the ordinance before, and what Jim's saying, I think, yes, it is based entirely or almost entirely on DNR model code.
Hey, my guess is,
I
well,
think you
we're
got-
gonna talk about salt someday in one of our meetings, but.
Someday,
My guess is one of the culprits could well be our infiltration basins that we're requiring people from parking lots runoff where they salt heavily. Goes through our infiltration basins and goes into the groundwater system. So I think we're kind of doing ourselves. Not sure if we're gaining much or losing. Salt may be a bigger problem than recharging the groundwater system.
Now you tell me. We're all trying the best information we have.
well,
So I guess proceed on. I guess I have no other comments on that. We'll leave the standard wording in there.
okay. Any of the other aspects that anybody wants to add to?
I thought Herb had some good comments. And I thought Eric's response was very good. So I just thought I'd
Do people want to,
pass that on.
do you want to summarize that somehow? Herb's on the call here. Do you want to ask for his summary or something? Or
Do you have any comments to make, Herb, on your comments and Eric's response?
And Herb,
Herb, if you're there, you're muted.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to fix. Took me a minute here. Nothing in addition to the comments that I had. I think in general, I'd like the code, to be updated to reflect more of the comprehensive plan goals. And maybe, look more into the future and not so much into doing the same thing that we've been doing, because we've, demonstrated that what we've been doing isn't quite adequate. So I'd like to be a little more proactive and try to address some of the problems, so our kids don't have to deal with the same thing that we're dealing with. In stormwater management, especially. So that's the main concern I have.
if I can paraphrase, one of the points Herb was trying to make was that the zoning code ought to allow for more flexibility in what we call low impact development, meaning narrower streets. Grass swale drainage as opposed to storm sewer drainage, things like that. Is that fair to say, Herb?
Definitely, yeah. Emphasizing, more on-site retention of water and infiltration rather than relying on regional facilities. And, the impervious surface area is the critical thing there to try to control and reduce as much as we can, and intersperse those with green infrastructure and greenways that allow for infiltration and that have better vegetative cover than we currently have.
I haven't read, full disclosure, the details of the what was it, 300 pages or whatever it is?
It's extensive.
But my question would be, is, without getting into the nuances, is there somewhere that could at least allow in the zoning code for development, new development, considerations or allowances under certain circumstances to allow for streets, sidewalks, disconnectedness, all the impervious stuff we talk about, varying from, we have street width requirements for residential and arterial and blah, blah, blah. Can we have a phrase that says, I don't know the exact wording, that variances could be considered or would be considered upon presentation of a specific site development and review by appropriate committees.
Variances of street width.
Yes, stuff like minimum parking lot sizes per square foot of commercial building, street widths per type of street you're on. All those things that make for more imperviousness that may or may not be always necessary everywhere.
Mark Opitz, is it accurate that the parking requirement minimums have gone down?
Yes, so we actually have lowered parking minimums for many land uses and established parking maximums. We also are getting comments from some quarters to do away with parking minimums. I don't see that happening. But obviously the Plan Commission will need to weigh in on that. But ultimately we are lowering parking minimums a little bit and then establishing parking maximums.
Street width, something that should be addressed here in zoning, or is that something that is addressed elsewhere as well?
Anything that is, anything that's in the public right of way is not going to be under the purview of zoning, obviously.
So street width would not be.
Right. So zoning is private property only, not public property.
Yeah.
The page 197 of the zoning ordinance draft, that's where the table is on off-street parking spaces.
Okay, and just so I'm clear, and we can talk about this for hours, but if a subdivision, single family residential subdivision plat is being submitted, the zoning does not have a criteria for right of way widths on those streets?
No, that's
The
not
zoning doesn't, but the subdivision ordinance would.
Yes.
I mean, let me elaborate a little bit. So we have heavily used planned development district zoning, which going forward will be called planned unit development, like it is in most communities, PUDs. So as part of that, like Red Tail Ridge, for example, or Bell Farm, definitely a condition of approval was street widths and the like. That we did have that as part of the Plan Commission approval of the rezoning. So in that sense, there was a zoning linkage. But in terms of applying zoning regulations to to private, I mean, the regulations, the setbacks, dimensional standards, bulk, height of buildings, building mass, impervious surface ratios, things like that is related to private property only. So, but approval of a development overall, especially when PUD is involved, planned unit development, then there's a zoning component. But otherwise, the subdivision ordinance, which we have budgeted, we are asking for the council to approve funds to revamp our subdivision ordinance next year. So that's going to be our next step after the zoning ordinance, is to redo the subdivision ordinance. That's where I think some of the issues you're talking about can be addressed.
Thought this pamphlet that Herb showed from EPA was pretty good. I don't know if consultant looked at that when they redid our zoning ordinance. Do you know that, Mark? Whether
I don't know if he looked at what Herb provided. Herb gave us feedback a couple of weeks ago. I have not provided individual feedback from individuals or committees to our consultant yet, but I have provided staff input to our consultant, including from Eric. So I can't speak exactly to Herb. I don't have Herb's email in front of me or what he's provided, but I'm happy to work with our consultants and with Eric to address those issues.
okay. So what do we have to do tonight, Eric?
You need to make some recommendations. About any changes you want. To what they've provided. All 300 pages.
All 300 pages of, or go
And
along with it.
maybe, and maybe Eric, you could elaborate on the email exchange we had with Ben today. If that's relevant. I have one of those emails with me, but I don't have the most recent commentary from you in front of me. Just because I'm on my phone, but maybe you could.
Yeah,
The point is, the point is, you said for shoreline zoning, you anticipate that we would have two sets of standards, one for annexed areas within the city and one for areas in our extraterritorial review area.
no. This
Did I
has
hear that
nothing to do with extraterritorial jurisdiction.
Oh, then I read your email very quickly and I didn't comprehend it. Sorry.
So. Back to this shoreland zoning thing. The current shoreland zoning ordinance is only. It only covers areas that the city annexed since 1982. And it really only gives setbacks. There's no impervious area limitation.
That just means distance from the.
From the ordinary high water mark.
They can be. Including surface stuff like parking lots and whatnot, or just building.
No, impervious area, so it would be atypical for a city to enact a more strict shoreland zoning ordinance. I brought that to you guys a year ago and you seemed supportive of it, so what the types of properties this would affect are mostly the lakefront properties. Middleton Beach Road or the things along the north shore of the lake. There's some parcels adjacent to Tiedemann and Stricker Ponds that might get affected. These are usually set up so that an existing home is grandfathered.
How would it affect Graber Pine?
I don't think it would affect anything surrounding Graber.
The new development's not gonna be close enough.
No. It'd be just a 300-foot buffer that you would put an impervious area restriction on. And all those restrictions, are kind of already in place for everything except single family homes and duplexes. So this just adds, our stormwater ordinance doesn't cover. Single family residential. When I presented this to you last year, I spitballed some impervious for Middleton Beach Road, and I said the most impervious lots were like 60 or 65% impervious. So those would all still be grandfathered, but a redevelopment, or if they wanted to exceed that, they would have to use pervious pavers or something like that. They would have to have the little stormwater plan for their single family.
How far back from the shore does the ordinance go?
It'd be 300 feet for the impervious area standard, but the zone itself would be 1,000 feet from Lake Mendota.
So that new development off Allen Boulevard, the apartment complex that's being proposed?
No, that wouldn't. I mean, it'd be in the shoreland.
Yeah.
Yes, but there wouldn't be a special impervious requirement for it. Because it wouldn't be within 300 feet. Part of it would.
Yeah.
But you'd have to either be that riparian landowner or you'd have to have your whole lot within that 300 feet. So there are a couple of lots like along Voss and Sweeney on the south side of Tiedemann Pond that it would catch, or lots on the south side of Voss next to Stricker Pond that would end up in this 300-foot buffer.
They're already developed, so.
Right, But if somebody wanted to put in a patio or something, then we would say, well. Okay, but you gotta build it out of pervious pavers.
Yeah, no, I guess down the road, 100 years from now, they could well be tearing down houses and building new houses.
Sure.
Okay, but it just be for like patios. I mean, what about on Middleton Beach Road for the few houses that haven't been redeveloped?
Then they would fall under this.
Yeah.
So if they wanted to go up to 60% impervious. They'd have to build things, cisterns, pervious pavement, green roofs. It would be restrictive. It would be. Quite restrictive, or it'd be a cost to build that lot out.
That seemed to,
So the requirement is so we don't reduce the impervious area. I mean, next to Lake Medota, it's Rob, he's gonna go into the groundwater system in the
Right.
lake,
yeah,
or run off directly into the lake.
Yeah.
That really doesn't make a heck of a lot of difference.
Well, you get the treatment.
Cleans it off a little bit.
Cleans it off, I guess, yeah, and a little delay.
I mean, I'll say this is not typical. I expect there will be, plan commission may say, no, we don't like this. So
We're just
the
looking for your feedback, right? We're just looking
The
for your feedback and it's up, go ahead. I need to excuse myself. I'm sorry. I have a commitment that I was trying to get out of, but I can't. So I need to excuse
Yeah.
myself. I apologize.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, thank you.
So it's just a recommendation. Yeah, and that's fine with me,
Which,
what you propose.
okay.
That's just my opinion, so I don't know how you wanna. Are we gonna vote on everything or just blanket approval, things you recommended?
I think I can just say there's a consensus to do
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna disagree.
There's no way we're gonna vote on each one of these
right.
red line comments here, right?
And if we did, we would have, some individual differences depending on each one, but that's not really the point.
Well, so there's one other major thing then that I'd like you to weigh in on, and that's at the bottom of this page. So. For each of the zoning districts, they've proposed a height limitation, like you can't build over 3 stories. And then they've put a paragraph at the end of that says. We might let you build 4 stories if you do something extra, and one of those extra things is exceeds stormwater standards. So I'm just saying that's much too vague. And we need to come up with a rule. So that we're not, we don't have to think about it every time and run the risk of being whimsical.
I'm not sure I even necessarily support the idea of tying the option of an extra height based on improved stormwater management. It's not no nexus there.
Yeah.
An extra height doesn't affect how much water is gonna be.
No, I mean, it's a little carrot and stick thing to say,
Yeah,
well, we'll
but-
give you that if you do more of this, but it's not,
But I think it's misplaced.
yeah.
I think it ties in because, the code, and I think the general direction is from planning and council is to increase density.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a way to increase density without increasing impervious if you're building up.
Okay, so if it's, take the apartment example, which seems, be the hot topic, you go up another floor, you need more parking space. You need to go dig deeper, or you get out more horizontal or something, so are we ahead of the game, even if your stormwater controls somehow exceed by some measurement our minimum requirements?
And aren't we limiting the number of floors because of the type of environment, type of setting for buildings in a particular zone? And should we exceed those just because we're fortunate enough to be able to have better stormwater management practices in someplace? I mean. There's a lot of people who get upset with taller buildings that are going up, and then to have even taller because someone is able to do something more with stormwater doesn't make sense to me.
It seems like they're allowing taller buildings anyway. Someone
Well, they
proposes,
are.
someone
They are.
proposes 7 and they knock it down to 5 and they approve it.
And everybody's happy.
Yeah, no, they're
Yeah.
not happy.
Well, they got what they wanted. in the
The
first place.
developer's happy, yeah. Residents, bordermen aren't happy, but
Right.
I agree with what you're saying, so it doesn't,
Two.
I don't know how that affects what your comments are, Eric.
Well, we could. Consensus recommendation is not to tie stormwater standards to building height.
But if it is tied, that it has to have a definition like provide 100% infiltration. Or is it better to just give the recommendation, don't do it?
I don't know which is better, but
Right.
you're right, we're leaving the door open.
Right.
For this
If it's gonna
magical
happen.
exceeds standards.
Yeah.
I mean,
Only
what does
100%
that mean?
infiltration, and you're next to a parking lot that gets heavily salted.
Yeah.
The argument,
It will be.
take their side of the coin. The argument is, if you don't let me do it here with an extra story and improve stormwater management, I'm gonna go build out on the edge of town. And have more impact,
Well,
more footprint, blah, 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 right?
well. What are you gonna put? Extra stories on the edge of town?
No, I can spread out more out there.
Space.
I can make it a larger, flatter area and take up more impervious or create more impervious.
Where are you gonna do this?
Hmm?
Where are you gonna do this?
I'm not developing. I'm just saying that would.
The town of
Well, I think
Springfield?
if you got-
No.
I think if you got out of a sewer district, you're not gonna build large apartment buildings.
Bingo.
Except we keep extending the sewer service area too, so. I was just trying to take the point of view that I think you were bringing up, Eric, was the idea that this was meant to try to reduce urban expansion, urban
Sprawl.
That's the intent.
And the intent is also more affordable housing in a denser area. Increase of density, you can increase affordable housing.
There are other ways to
That's
make
the
things
theory.
more affordable.
Yeah,
Have a lot of demands that increase costs.
I think that's the reasoning behind
Okay.
this.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys look at the lots in Red Tail Ridge or Bell Farm, these two new subdivisions, they're smaller lots than where I live.
Are they smaller than Middleton Hills lots?
Strawberry Loop.
Or,
Some might be close.
I don't know.
Hidden Oaks, I mean, they're real small too.
All of it.
Yeah, those are smaller than what would have been built 20 years before that too, I'd say.
Not Northwood.
Yeah.
No.
No.
I don't know where we are.
I don't know, if you're looking for.
We're getting. What would you like to see then, Jim?
Well, I guess I'm back to suggesting that this particular issue, the taller, not be tied to stormwater, or if it is, the stormwater exceedance criteria must be better defined.
I agree with you. I agree.
But no recommendation on how to define it.
Well. You can put percent improvement over peak flow, right, volume and sediment control. I'm not suggesting what numbers to put on there, but it's a whole other topic.
What about the suggestion of providing 100% infiltration? That's what I'm.
I threw that out there and then I
Okay.
tried to shoot holes in it in the next two sentences,
Yeah.
saying it's problematic. So I didn't do a good job of leading you in any particular direction. It's difficult to achieve 100% infiltration for a whole variety of reasons. And if we ever move towards beefing that up, maybe it should be you need to infiltrate 90% of a 3.5-inch storm or something like that.
That might be a better way of doing it. 'Cause the way 90% of filtration gets away with it is the annual or the 9-month period. They have to infiltrate 90% of the total volume. So a large storm, they may not have to infiltrate that. Or if you do 100%, then they got to infiltrate the large storm.
Yeah. And
So that's what 90% allows them to get away with avoiding the large storm.
And that's for the stormwater ordinance
Yeah.
rewrite.
And we're in limbo. Yeah. So I don't know where we're going with this one.
Well, I think I hear a consensus that you don't want this tied to stormwater. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Is there another one for question?
No, I think the appetite is, for the rest of these, I'll just,
This goes to the plan commission, they say, well, we don't agree with that. With your suggestion, we hear you, but we're gonna keep that language. Specific to the taller building and stormwater, and the language is gonna be. Whatever wishy-washy wording it was, exceed standards. Do we get another kick at this, or is that? At that point in time?
well, if they pass that language, you might be getting many, many, many kicks at it. You'd get one for each development proposal that wanted to build an extra story.
Stormwater stand, yeah.
And the language is exceeds stormwater standards as approved by Water Resources Committee and the city engineers. So it's just
You feel good
it's
that night?
ill-defined.
Easy.
Yeah.
Right. Do we like this guy or not?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, can the city council could override ordinance requirements anyway, can't they?
Some of them.
Yeah, I mean, if they decide to rezone something, they. A public hearing and change the zoning requirements.
Yeah, I mean, we're still kind of under the county's thumb.
Yeah, the
Because
town.
they've got a special authority.
So you can't override the counties or the towns, but we could override our own ordinances.
Which is something that Ken had commented on last year with the shoreland zoning, is that he thought it'd be important to have a variance process. Which is also not yet written in there.
Yeah. Okay, so you want comments on any other item?
No, I think it covers it. The rest of these were relatively minor. Oh, there is one. So there's a new landscaping point system, and I wondered if you guys wanted to comment on trees, tree species, or promoting trees of any particular type or size or location.
Cottonwoods and Box Elder.
A few others too.
To pump the water up, it's certainly. Certainly.
That's true.
Is there good published data on species and evapotranspiration rates?
Yeah, let me take a look at my computer and see. I have some some data on that, but, so I'll take a look at that and get back to you.
Okay.
Yes, will some of those trees grow in all places?
Right.
And that's,
Or do you want them?
or do,
Do you
yeah,
want
So, what'd you say?
I mean,
Well, some of
cottonwood
these
is a
trees-
missing tree that you're gonna deal with.
places, and do you even want to cut?
You don't
I
want.
mean, to see.
So that's
just
Be
a break.
Don't let the minutes reflect that.
Well, willows use up a lot of water too.
Well, those, yeah.
I'm not sure where you plant them.
Far away from your house.
Anywhere they want.
Phosphorus.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they drop leaves on the street and then
Yeah,
you gotta do a street sweeping and.
counterproductive.
So
So
Ken's gonna.
Ken's gonna send me
Ken's
something.
mentioned.
Well, I'll just
Native
take a look
forests.
at what, yeah, but. Trees are, in my mind, important. I mean, they provide shade and they capture a lot of water and that evaporation cools things down, right? So,
They're important, except for the one that's over my eavesdrops in the house. That's the one that's not.
what's that?
There's one tree on my property over my house that sheds on the roof. That one,
Oh, well,
it's
that's,
not
yeah.
important.
You need.
yeah, well, yeah, you gotta
You know what?
deal with that.
Just need to
You gotta
add-
put it in the right place.
What if-
Neighborhood where I live now is getting pretty mature and a lot of the trees are very large. And some of those large trees they planted on the boulevard are so much they shade a lot and people can't grow grass. And
Yeah.
it really makes the house look very bad, the landscape, because there's no grass or any plants grow. They planted too many big trees close together. So I mean, I don't know how you get a balance.
It's gotta be something that'll grow under a tree though, right?
Well, it's not grass.
Oh, there are some grasses that will grow in that shape, but you know, it's not something you just go down.
Yeah.
Maybe creeping Charlie.
Well, there's some, I remember Botwell Tree Farm, Sod Farm had some really low,
Yeah,
um,
maybe people just don't try.
Most people.
yeah, very short tall.
Pennsylvania oak sedge likes shade better than it does sun. And that's in my front yard.
Yeah. Well. Is there anything else, Eric?
No, not on that item.
We don't need any motion or anything else. You just took it for consensus of what we discussed.
Yep.
So
So
how do you get all these good things to work on?
just keeps coming. I think the shoreland zoning thing, that was my idea.
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
Did that to myself.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, the next item of business then is let's discuss again the combining committees.
Yep.
That's the only one left.
So for those of you who weren't here for this Stormwater Utility Board meeting, the same agenda item was on it. Didn't get very far with it, and that wasn't the intent anyways.
Well, it seemed like that advantage that Susan pointed out in our SWAB meeting was that SWAB has people from finance committee on there that provide us information on finances. On the opposite side, it's somewhat cumbersome for the water resources people to be dealing with. What issues does SWAB take and what issues does WRM take? And we always have SWAB first, and sometimes it seems backwards that we should have the other one first. And so there is a degree of cumberness, and discussion was that the consensus was, or idea was from SWAB to have a joint meeting of SWAB members and water resources and talk about advantages or disadvantages of combining meetings. And evidently the city is going to take it up next year because they have too many committees and combining them. Not ours, but a whole bunch of other ones. And I say that we're probably under consideration too, and for good reasons. Initially, water resources developed the stormwater utility, and then it got split off. And I think our thought at the time was we would be also in charge of the stormwater utility fund. and not have a separate committee, but city council decided otherwise at that time.
It's important to get the finance big picture in there on that. So I can see us combining the two committees, and I think there's also an issue of, I know there was people unhappy when stormwater utility or when water resources wanted to build stormwater features in parklands and conservancy lands.
Oh, now are you talking about the Donna Drive or the pond behind the police station?
Yeah,
We wanted to build that. That was proposed when they had it on the fire station. So they built that pond because of their requirements, and we enlarged it because it was good infiltration.
yeah, that might be true, but it was
Within conservancy.
within conservancy lands. That committee was not happy with it, and the funding of it, I think, was even,
They weren't happy with the enlarged pond.
they weren't happy with giving up some of their land.
Land behind the fire station.
No, the police department.
Oh, the police station. Okay, yeah. Okay, that's
Yeah,
a different
they're on
one,
the
yeah.
creek corridor. So I think we need to get these issues worked together a little better. And who funds them, because I vaguely remember that coming out of CLC capital funds.
What the cost of that pond?
We used to, CLC used to get,
I think the developer paid for most of that pond, and maybe stormwater utility funds part of it, but. That pond was built because of that development that was taking place.
right. But what I'm
Yeah.
saying is we need better working relationships with these different committees.
But there is a.
We being SWUB or we being water resources or both?
Or both.
Are there any actions or discussions that SWUB has that would be that are good to not have water resources as a part of, that like need to act independently? Are there any independent functions of that committee that would be hampered by having?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think it's, the biggest thing is understanding city finances in a big picture and being aware of the limitations of what city finances are.
So if we just added a finance member to one committee, wouldn't that do it?
Well, that still doesn't help the interaction between these other committees where the land is.
Well, that might just be communication, say, between water and conservancy lands or water.
It could be.
Right now, there's not a public works person on the Water Resource Commission, right?
Right, and there should be, I think, a public works person on
Why?
Is that true?
Yeah.
Was one.
on water
It's on
resources.
Oh,
No, it's on.
It's on
SWUB.
SWUB for some reason, but not here.
Not here, yeah, that's right.
It's,
SWUB.
yeah, it's how it gets broken up in public works, because stormwater issues have generally been done by public works, but now if we're going to a utility to start funding it, that's a different issue.
I think they fit very well together. Given the way SWUB was formed, yeah, I agree. You have a finance committee member on there and
Yeah,
perhaps other committee members as well. You know, 5 citizens on water resources, 2 of whom shall possess expertise.
yeah, I could see.
We have better than that, right?
Mhm.
But I know at least Mayor Brar always had trouble trying to fill the slots on the committee. I mean, he kind of begged you,
Yeah.
Grace.
But he
Which
was
I'm
also
glad he
super,
did, but yes.
he
Yes.
was also very selective as to, he had little restrictions too, because I know there was one year, there was a very good person that lived outside Middleton that was a woman. Was that you?
Yeah.
And he did not want to take her. This was early on. This was, I think it was somebody doing, I think she might have lived in Wanakee or something. like
Oh,
that.
that's.
Yeah, this was early on.
So there is no requirement for residency in either of these groups?
No, I
No.
think there's a general requirement.
But we waive it for Ken.
What?
Well, and others too.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not,
And he actually talked to, I can't remember her name up in, she's an engineer with a water background, a consultant. And she would be an excellent member on the committee. It was off and on whether she wanted to do it or she didn't want to do it, and I never got a good reading whether the mayor in the end didn't want her.
I got the feeling the mayor didn't want. He was trying to keep everything within the city. But there's some places where
Yeah.
to get
to get the
really
expertise.
expertise, you've got to go outside the
Yes.
city of Middleton.
And it is desirable to. We've had consultants on the committee before, and I think it's desirable to have that interchange. Of course, Jim represents. Consultant in a way when you were on a consultant, but I can't remember his name. He was on for years, guy from Strand.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Don Kenora is from Strand. He's on
Don is too,
Swell.
and Public Works, and
Yeah, he's on Public Works. I think we need to think about the best way to combine the two and
Yeah.
the areas of interest and define them clearly so that a mayor knows going forward what we're looking for.
we don't have any feedback from the new mayor, what she's looking for.
We can get that. I'm not worried about that.
Well, swab. Here's my ignorance once again. Who is the Conservancy of Land?
David Shaw.
Is that me? Okay.
Yeah,
Since I got on the one through plan from parks and one through conservancy, I get confused which is which.
You're on
But-
both those, Parks and Conservancy? Huh?
Yeah, I got on parks, which I got conservancy, and then those both got me into these two.
yeah, those two out of combined conservancy and.
Well, that's another question. And I was gonna say that.
And you would, no,
No,
no, okay.
They,
it won't protect the conservancy.
it'd be nice if conservancy could get some more money and be a little more active.
I think conservancy needs to take over forester.
That wouldn't be bad.
Because then you get people interested in the environment and trees altogether versus baseball fields.
I guess I get confused, what's a conservancy, what's a park?
Parks are active recreation and conservancy was more
Yeah.
passive recreation.
No one uses the park in our neighborhood.
Well, it was designed for active recreation.
They
So
just don't do it.
lead a horse to water.
Kids in your neighborhood,
Do have them.
they still don't go?
People don't leave their kids out to play anymore.
All right,
Oh.
I'm focusing on a number of people who could possibly end up being on this combined group. And again, you know, it's gonna get unwieldy, but so my question is, David, are you representing both Parks and Recreation and CLC on SWAB?
No, SWUB is one and the water resource is the other.
No.
And Jim, the CLC rep isn't coming from CLC, it's a water resources person going to CLC.
Yeah.
What, on the,
Yeah,
on the,
SWAB.
on the ordinance for SWAB?
I think it might
Oh.
be Erica Pollock is the other.
It says one member from Parks and Rec, one member from Conservancy Land Committee.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's for SWAB.
For SWAB, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
yeah.
think
Are
Eric's
you,
like,
are
yeah,
you filling both those roles on SWAB?
no,
Erica is.
Erica is.
I've got this up here.
Well, I just didn't know. Oh,
Excellent.
it even says,
Yeah.
I could.
Yeah,
I
it
didn't
says-
show my ignorance that much, did I? Could've
That's
read
okay.
that.
Well, but you didn't know I had it up.
Those are good,
I
but-
could've done the same
Yeah.
thing.
It could be,
What needs to be done is we've got, if you're combining the two committees, right now we've got a person from CLC that is on SWAB, but we have a person from Water Resources that's on CLC. That needs to be maybe just made a person from CLC on Water Resources. and SWAB combined.
You know, it's kind of hard to get people to do that kind of stuff. People on a lot of committees already, and so now, I
Yeah,
mean, it sounds good on paper, you just do
Right,
that.
what I'm
You gotta
saying-
find this person who's willing to take on more committees.
what I'm suggesting is we reduce it, combine the two committees, reduce it to one person. And that the person have a strong interest and background in CLC instead of water resources. It's, so we would be getting rid of one person if we combine the two committees.
Yeah. So I don't know, but it's like we ended up with SWAB, I guess it was open for discussion, but. We don't need any recommendation
Tonight.
today. I guess the thing was, we talked about a joint meeting, if
Right,
we're in favor of a joint meeting. And talk about it together, and we'll end up in the same spot we are right now.
So
Confused.
if we had a joint meeting, we'd have Don would be here, right?
Mhm.
And
Someone from finance,
Jeffrey
Jeffrey
Jackson.
Jackson.
Jeffrey.
Another guy on SWAB too that wasn't there.
And Erica
Yeah,
and that's it, right?
What happened to the guy? There was a guy in SWAB that he resigned.
I don't know.
I don't think so.
No,
No.
there was a guy
My insurance
who
agent.
didn't renew his term. And that was Jim
Yeah,
Cook.
Jim Cook, okay. Jim's not on anymore,
No,
okay.
but I don't remember where he had come from.
Just I think just a citizen.
Not on SWAB, they're all from a committee,
Well, they are. and-
Mhm.
unless they're,
Oh,
oh yeah, unless they're a citizen from Water Resources.
He wasn't.
No, just independent citizens.
Right.
Right.
Unlike water resources, it does have. that. So, okay, if we did this joint session, we kind of, I'm hearing that we're not gonna do it next month, but somehow down the road a little bit.
I guess, I don't know whose decision that is, Eric,
but budgeting,
I'm talking about
Budgeting, thank you.
Is this something
council
where,
member
like,
make that
you and I
recommendation.
could get together and sort of come up with a particular plan?
Warrant's gotta be. I don't know going forward.
This was only vaguely brought up by council, et cetera, so.
Maybe we should leave council react and see if they want us to combine us together, then we have a meeting.
You want council to decide who's gonna be on the committee then?
Yeah.
Well, number one, if you don't want to do it at all, then we don't even have to meet.
I
Well,
think
then-
council does.
I think they'll look to combine the two, so I think it would be better if the two committees came up with a recommendation as to. Here's how we'd like to be combined if we're gonna be combined.
Yeah.
Okay, then we should
And I
have
think
a
it's-
meeting and make a recommendation to
Right.
council.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any hurry on council. I'm not sure when they're gonna take it up. Or if they even have a timeline. Have you heard anything as to
The only thing we heard was that it would be after the start of the new
after
year.
the new year?
Well, I think one consideration is by combining some of these committees, we reduce staff time that's being used up after hours,
Absolutely.
which is a significant amount of money. And time and effort.
It'd be better for you, Eric, if just had one, instead of having two packets together.
Oh, sure,
Yeah.
that'd be a time
7
saver.
minutes, one.
Yeah.
You know, Rich and I we weren't gonna operate in parallel. Forever when I started working, but. You know, it's. Unless I'm just gonna run them both. You know, it still makes sense for us to both be here.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, Rich is hourly, so this really eats into his.
Right, and it eats
work
into
schedule.
your time off or hours, or you're working overtime,
Well, I'm salaried,
but you're working more than a 40-hour work week.
sure.
But Rich gets extra
Salary,
overtime
that
pay. Rich gets overtime pay or just extra?
No, because we don't have a budget for overtime.
So
So,
just works less hours some other day,
Mhm.
sometime.
So that's a good reason to do the combination.
absolutely, yeah, I mean, that's one of the motivators
Mhm.
that why this was recommended was to ease the burden on staff.
Yeah, because I know back when I was on council, staff was using an awful lot of time just going to council meetings.
Yeah, the planners have a dozen committees.
Mhm.
Public Works only has 4, I
Yeah,
think, that we
'cause-
serve. So,
Yeah, you're not asking for more though, are you?
No.
But it's gotta be a fine, it's gotta be a pain for the mayor to find replacements too.
right,
I know Gerb spent a lot of time at it, but he probably had more time to do it, so
He had more time to do it and he was,
I can't imagine the present mayor having. Well, I don't know, I mean, she's got a full-time job plus a family and everything else. That's an issue. Okay,
I was gonna say, if these two, for just looking at the numbers, there's 7 each. But then there's the 3 water resources, so it's 11. So, which is not unwieldy, and then it's just about the makeup
yeah,
of those
I
individuals.
think it's, yeah,
Yeah,
it,
so it's.
it might be we increase water resources by 2 people or something like that. And redefined where each person comes from.
But it's not.
It's not doubling it.
No,
Yeah.
it's not doubling it, it's,
I guess we could hang or when we have agenda or consultants come in, this room gets really crowded, so. Adding 2 more people should be okay the way it is now, but at times when we were in this room before, it got crowded.
I.
when I would
think
come
if
in
you
as a
work the two
consultant,
together-
this room was always cramped.
Yeah. And I don't think. Well, it's another issue, but it seems like COVID could be increasing again, so I don't know.
It is,
Are there any other facilities that we could use?
counties,
And we need to,
what,
is it a new breed?
it's a new breed,
I think this is
And
the biggest
the
one.
wastewater sampling,
Lease.
it's gone up to
Oh,
800
the
million
library?
copies
Oh, the
of
library.
virus per person.
I don't know. I can look
Potential.
at
in
that.
county,
I'm not.
I don't know if
50 to
I
100.
don't know.
hybrid, there's the place, although I would think that the police department would have
Right.
some good facilities for that.
I don't know, but I'll ask Drew, IT.
Yeah,
Meeting at the
We
police.
have had meetings in the library, but I.
Yeah, the courtroom.
Yeah.
Water resources.
If they're not holding court at night, it's empty.
and can we do hybrid from there?
Yes,
Oh, okay, that was my question. Okay, yeah,
yeah, it's much
I
nicer.
mean, there's some really nice facilities there.
Yeah,
We spent a lot of money on that.
So you want to discuss, next thing is any items for discussion at the next meeting?
Yeah, I didn't give you any suggestions for this. You had asked about TIF policy.
Yeah, I
That
read
come
that
up?
in the Middleton paper about and I think that got sent out from Eric to everybody about the TIF funding for Bell Farms. They gave them $12 million because of stormwater management issues, and we didn't relay any more stormwater emission. They followed the ordinance, and so there wasn't any additional requirements. It makes it sound like we were
Yeah.
adding more things onto them, and therefore they got $12 million partially for stormwater management.
We shouldn't discuss this too much, but
Right?
we should not discuss this too much.
No,
But we
But it
have,
wasn't 12
I guess the question is, do we want to
Storm.
discuss?
That was a whole bunch of things.
Yeah. Do we want to discuss that issue at our meeting sometime?
the use of TIF money for water resource projects. Might be what it is. Or water resource management.
I don't know.
We could discuss this next month.
At least
together.
educate us about how it's being done.
That would be a good, because after all the years, I really don't understand when they get $12 million, what that really means.
Yeah, I think that would be a good education.
Yeah,
Do you want me to ask Abby, the head planner, to maybe talk about how TIF works?
Or Bill Burns.
I was gonna say Bill,
Bill
because
knows it much.
he's the guy who,
He's the guy that
yeah,
takes care of all the dollars and Abby relies on him.
All right.
Okay. And
Bill's good.
the other item I passed out was, and I don't know, if we had any discussion, because I think we already had it. That just for your information on Madison got $6 million for stormwater
Yeah.
flood control on
Yeah.
the South Fork. I don't know if we want to discuss that, what that impact is for us, or
That would be good.
if we had a general impression, but I don't think it would be hurt just for us to talk about it.
Well, we need to think about most of our stormwater is going through Madison, so how do we work together?
There's stormwater.
And some of theirs is coming to us.
Oh, there's.
The South Fork is coming through us.
South Fork is coming to us, it goes through Middleton.
We don't have much going to Madison.
Well,
Well-
we do when it gets to the lake,
The dam.
it gets to the lake and the dam,
Oh, okay, okay.
that goes through Madison.
Sort of.
Okay, so are there any other items that people want to talk about at the next meeting? We've talked about before, something on salt, and I don't know, we dropped the last spring. But we didn't get a feedback from somebody on those.
I am still working on getting route maps from operations. And it's
Where they
been
split salt.
difficult.
you're gonna get information from Dane County as well.
Yeah,
Well, we had Allison Madison from Saltwise, who I think is employed by Dane County, maybe it's Carpsey. She was gonna come and comment once I got the stuff back from operations.
Not sure what all Dane County maintains. Century, Allen, and University,
Yeah,
not University. Okay.
University west of downtown.
Oh,
And that's it, I think.
Yeah.
And Q as it goes up.
yeah,
so that was the person we talked about last winter that was going to review our plan, and
Yeah, and has been talking to me and Brad Hockley, the operations manager. I was also approached by a high school kid who wants our plow routes and he's gonna try to optimize them. Just as a side project,
yeah.
okay.
so that's interesting.
AI thing or something.
But I wanted to stop putting that item on the items for the next meeting, because
I can tell you right now,
again,
that's not gonna work.
the optimization.
Yeah, because they're gonna say every storm is different.
The snowplow guys are gonna say that?
Yeah,
Operators.
whatever I've always heard.
Pushing a high school student's dreams.
Well, I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm just saying. He can have a recommendation. It's gonna go over the crew and they're gonna go, ain't gonna work.
Well, they can give him feedback and explain why,
It'd be
and
interesting
then
to
he
see what
can
he-
come back with a better plan.
I've dealt with this enough that depends on when the snow starts falling, when the snow ends and.
Yep.
How much snow and what kind of snow, et cetera, et cetera.
I
And
think, you think the city changes based on that, what they do?
I don't know
I
too
think
much
they got a
about,
procedure, and they just follow through and do it.
I don't know too much about the city. I just know about towns.
There's certain roads that are super steep that need to be plowed
Yes,
before some of the other flat,
plowed and salted.
yes.
Bus routes have huge influences on things.
Warren, do you wanna?
Yeah, the meeting's adjourned.
All right.
Well done. Find the.
You want a 10,000 foot